Golden Tales.
Elara had always carried a quiet melancholy within her, a feeling as intrinsic as the color of her eyes. It wasn't sadness, precisely, but a lingering sense of something lost, a beautiful, ethereal memory just beyond her grasp. Her days, though comfortable, and filled with the gentle rhythms of her academic life as a music historian, often felt incomplete. She spent hours poring over dusty manuscripts, searching for forgotten composers and unrecorded pieces, hoping perhaps to find a reflection of that elusive feeling in the pages of history. Her small apartment, filled with books and antique instruments she lovingly restored, was a testament to her solitary devotion to the past. She rarely sought out the bustle of modern life, preferring the hushed conversations with long-dead artists. One crisp autumn afternoon, while browse a lesser-known antique shop nestled on a cobblestone side street, a peculiar item caught her eye. Tucked away in a dimly lit corner, beneath a pile of forgotten trinkets, was an old, intricately carved wooden music box. It was small, worn smooth by countless touches, and completely unadorned save for a single, deeply engraved symbol on its lid, a stylized treble clef intertwined with a delicate rose. A strange, almost magnetic pull drew her to it. When she carefully opened the lid, a tiny, almost ethereal melody drifted out, a few broken notes that sounded both familiar and utterly foreign. It was a tune she couldn't place, yet it resonated deeply within her, stirring that ever-present feeling of longing. Ah, the old music box. The shop owner, a kind, elderly woman with spectacles perched on her nose, remarked, noticing Elara's fascination. It has been here for years. Never quite worked right. The melody is broken. She paused, her gaze softening. It belonged to a young man, many, many years ago. He was quite devoted to it, always tinkering, trying to perfect its tune. A musician, he was vanished without a trace one day, left this behind. Elara bought the music box without hesitation, the broken melody already echoing in the chambers of her heart. Back in her quiet apartment, she carefully placed it on her desk, its worn wood a stark contrast to her polished instruments. She spent the next few days trying to fix it, her historian's precision giving way to an almost obsessive determination. Each failed attempt to mend the mechanism, to restore the tune, only deepened her connection to the object and the unknown musician who had once owned it. The melody, however fragmented, felt like a whisper from another time, a promise of something beautiful that had been cut short. Little did she know, this small, broken music box was not just a relic of the past. It was a key, designed to unlock a destiny she had long felt missing. Elara's fascination with the music box quickly consumed her. The broken melody, with its haunting beauty, played constantly in her mind. She spent hours researching, trying to identify the fragmented tune, but it yielded no results in any known archives. It was as if the song, and perhaps its creator, had simply vanished from history. The shop owner's words about the young man who owned it lingered in her thoughts, adding to the enigma. She felt an inexplicable connection to this unknown musician, a kinship that transcended time. One evening, while gently running her fingers over the music box's worn base, she felt a faint indentation. With careful precision, she scraped away years of accumulated grime and dust. Beneath it, barely visible, were three small, intricately carved initials, JAR, and below them, almost imperceptibly, a date, 1888. A jolt went through Elara. This was more than just a random antique. It was a personal artifact with a hidden identity. Her research took a new, feverish turn. Armed with the initials and the year, Elara delved deeper into archival records, old music society registers, and forgotten local newspapers. Weeks turned into a month, her apartment becoming a labyrinth of historical documents and maps. Most leads were dead ends, but her persistence eventually paid off. In a faded gazette from the late 19th century, she found a small, almost insignificant obituary notice. It mentioned the sudden disappearance of a gifted, eccentric young composer named Julian Alistair Reed, initials JAR, in the autumn of 1888. He was noted for his unusual, innovative compositions and his reclusive nature. The article spoke of a promising career cut short and a deep sense of loss felt by his small circle of admirers. Reading Julian's story sent shivers down Elara's spine. His description resonated with the ethereal quality of the music box's melody. But the obituary offered no explanation for his disappearance, no details beyond the date. It was as if he had simply dissolved into thin air. Yet, as Elara pieced together fragments of his life from various sources, a mention in a concert program, a letter to a music critic, she felt an increasingly vivid presence. She learned he was a dreamer, a passionate artist whose music was said to have a profound emotional depth. Much like the feeling the music box evoked in her, she discovered he had a particular fondness for roses, often incorporating their symbolism into his work. The more she learned about Julian, the more convinced she became that his disappearance was more than a mere vanishing act. And the broken music box, with its incomplete melody, felt like a vital clue, a final message from a forgotten soul. The melancholy within her deepened, but it was now laced with a compelling sense of purpose. She wasn't just researching history. She was uncovering a mystery, and perhaps, unknowingly, connecting with a heart from over a century ago. Elara's apartment, once a sanctuary of quiet academic pursuit, now felt like a living archive dedicated to Julian Alistair Reed. Every surface was covered with maps, old photographs of London streets from the late 19th century, and copies of his sparse musical scores. The fragmented melody from the music box had become the soundtrack to her days, its broken notes a constant reminder of the mystery she was determined to solve. She found herself talking to Julian, whispering theories to the empty room, as if he might somehow hear her across the chasm of time. This wasn't merely a historical research project anymore. It was an obsession, deeply personal and profoundly consuming. Her friends, few and mostly fellow academics, noticed her increasing reclusiveness. They worried about her, gently suggesting she'd take a break, perhaps find a new, less all-encompassing subject. But Elara couldn't. Julian's story, his music, and his inexplicable disappearance had woven themselves into the fabric of her own being. She felt a strange, almost telepathic pull towards him, an empathy that transcended the decades. She imagined him as a kindred spirit, a sensitive soul misunderstood by his era, much like she often felt in hers. One rainy evening, while tracing the addresses Julian had lived at through old city directories, Elara stumbled upon a small, forgotten notation in one of his rare surviving letters. It was a cryptic reference to a hidden garden, where he found inspiration, accessible only through a particular antique shop, known for its peculiar assortment of goods. The letter mentioned the shop was run by an old woman, with eyes that saw beyond the veil. A shiver ran down Elara's spine. Could it be the same shop where she found the music box? And could this hidden garden hold the key to Julian's disappearance? Driven by a desperate hope, Elara revisited the antique shop the very next morning. The owner, the same kind, elderly woman, recognized her instantly. "The music box," she said, her eyes twinkling knowingly. "Has it been singing to you?" Elara, usually reserved, found herself pouring out her discovery about Julian, the initials, the date, the haunting melody. The old woman listened patiently, her gaze unnervingly piercing. "Ah, young Julian," she finally murmured, a wistful smile touching her lips. He was indeed a special one. Full of music, full of dreams. The garden he spoke of. It is real, not on any map, but real nonetheless. He would spend hours there, claiming it spoke to him. She then led Elara to a heavy, ornate wooden door at the very back of the shop, hidden behind stacks of old furniture. He believed that sometimes, when the melody is pure enough, and the heart is open, the veil between worlds thins. With a knowing look she pushed the door open, revealing not a dusty storage room, but a narrow, overgrown pathway leading into a dense thicket of ivy and ancient trees, bathed in an impeccably vibrant, almost golden light despite the overcast day. Elara stepped through, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and an exhilarating sense of destiny. The air in the narrow pathway was thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient foliage, completely muffling the sounds of the city behind her. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy of trees in shimmering shafts, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stillness. Elara pushed through a curtain of ivy, her heart thumping against her ribs, and stepped into an opening. It was not a large garden, but it was unlike any she had ever seen, wild and untamed, yet brimming with a magical vibrancy. Old stone benches were partially swallowed by moss, and forgotten statues peeked from behind overgrown bushes. But what truly captivated her were the roses. They bloomed in riotous profusion, their petals in every shade imaginable, from deep crimson to ethereal white, each one perfect, dewy, and impossibly vibrant. The air was heavy with their sweet, intoxicating perfume. and in the very center of this secluded haven stood a weathered, ivy-clad stone gazebo, its delicate structure hinting at past grandeur. As Elara moved deeper into the garden, a strange sensation washed over her. The light seemed to shift, becoming softer, warmer, as if she had stepped into an old photograph. The air grew heavier, charged with an almost palpable energy. And then, she heard it. Not the broken, fragmented tune from the music box, but the full, rich melody, played on a piano somewhere nearby. It was exactly as she had imagined it, a hauntingly beautiful composition, full of yearning and a profound sense of love. Driven by an irresistible pull, Elara followed the sound. It led her to the stone gazebo. As she peered through the archway, her breath caught in her throat. Inside, a man sat at a rustic, slightly worn piano, his back to her. His fingers danced across the keys, creating the very melody that had haunted her dreams. He had a lean, artistic build, and his dark hair fell boyishly over his brow as he played. The setting sun, now a brilliant gold, cast a warm glow around him. It was as if time had stood still, or rather, had rewound itself. He finished the piece, and the silence that followed was broken only by the gentle rustle of leaves. He sighed, a sound filled with a deep melancholy, and then turned. His eyes, the color of warm dark coffee, widened slightly as they met hers. They held a timeless wisdom, a surprising gentleness, and an unmistakable familiarity. He was dressed in clothing that seemed to belong to another era, a simple waistcoat over a crisp white shirt, tailored trousers. His face, though marked by a quiet sadness, was undeniably handsome, exactly as she had pictured Julian Alistair Reed. "Hello," he said, his voice a soft baritone, touched with a hint of surprise and curiosity. "I did not expect anyone here. Have you come to enjoy the garden's melody?" Elara could only stare, speechless. The air thrummed with unspoken questions. Was this a dream, a hallucination, or had she, somehow, through the echoes of a forgotten tune, truly stepped into a moment from the past? Julian Alistair Reed, the man from the music box, the ghost of her research, was sitting before her, alive. Elara stood frozen, her mind struggling to reconcile the impossible reality before her. Julian Alistair Reed, a man dead for over a century, was undeniably real, breathing, and looking at her with a curious, gentle gaze. The scent of old roses and damp earth filled the gazebo, grounding her even as her world tilted on its axis. "Are you quite all right?" Julian asked, his voice laced with genuine concern, as he rose from the piano bench. "You look as though you've seen a ghost." A wry, melancholic smile touched his lips. I have," Elara finally managed, her voice a fragile whisper. "You are Julian Alistair Reed, are you not?" From 1888, Julian's eyes widened in astonishment, then a shadow of profound sadness crossed his features. "How do you know that, yeah?" he murmured, stepping closer, his expression a mixture of awe and trepidation. "And my full name, no one calls me that anymore." "What sorcery is this?" Elara, driven by an instinct she couldn't explain, told him everything. She spoke of the antique shop, the music box with its broken melody, her research, and the obituary she had found. She explained how she had been drawn to his story, how his music resonated with a deep, inexplicable longing within her. Julian listened, his gaze never leaving her face, a complex array of emotions playing across his features: disbelief, recognition, and a growing wonder. "So," he said softly, a hand reaching out, almost touching her, then retracting, "you are from the future. From your time, I simply vanished." He looked around the verdant garden, then back at her, a profound understanding dawning in his eyes. "This garden, it is a place where time bends. I came here often, seeking solace, seeking inspiration. One day, I found myself unable to leave." His voice dropped to a near whisper. "I have been here, in this moment, since 1888, alone." The revelation was staggering, yet it explained everything. The unbroken melody from the music box, the feeling of a lost connection, the persistent melancholy in Elara's soul. They spent hours talking in the timeless garden, sharing their lives, their dreams, their understanding of music. Elara spoke of a world he could barely fathom: electricity, flying machines, global communication, while Julian painted vivid pictures of Victorian London, of gas lamps and horse-drawn carriages, of a society both rigid and bursting with artistic innovation. Despite the century that separated them, their souls connected with an effortless ease. They spoke of music as a universal language, of beauty, of the human heart's enduring capacity for yearning. As the magical light of the garden began to dim, a new kind of melody filled the air around them, the silent, growing harmony of two hearts, finally finding their missing pieces across the impossible expanse of time. Elara knew with every fiber of her being that the love she felt for Julian was not just a fleeting emotion. It was an ancient, powerful force, an echo of a forgotten melody that had finally found its complete tune. Days bled into weeks within the timeless serenity of the hidden garden. For Elara, the outside world, her academic pursuits, even her own era, began to feel distant, like a faint echo from a dream. Her entire being was consumed by Julian. They spent every waking moment together, exploring the garden's secret nooks, sharing melodies on the old piano, and simply talking. Their conversations, weaving a tapestry of shared thoughts and feelings that transcended the century between them. Julian, once trapped in melancholic solitude, bloomed under Elara's presence, his eyes regaining a spark she had only glimpsed in old, faded descriptions. Their love grew with an intensity that defied logic, a beautiful, impossible flower in a secluded, magical space. Yet, a dark cloud loomed over their improbable happiness. The music box. Elara had tried to fix its broken mechanism countless times, but it remained stubbornly incomplete. Julian explained that it was a personal creation, designed to play a specific, complex melody, and only when the mechanism was truly perfect could it bridge the gap between his time and hers. He believed his disappearance into the garden was somehow linked to its unfinished state, a half-formed bridge. He could not leave the garden, and Elara, despite the profound joy of being with him, knew she could not stay forever. Her absence from her own time would eventually be noticed, and the longer she stayed, the more distant her own reality became. One afternoon, as Julian played a new, bittersweet composition for her, a sudden, sharp ache resonated within Elara's chest. It was a familiar feeling, one she recognized as the pull of her own time, a subtle but insistent reminder of the world she had left behind. She realized with a cold dread that the garden's magic was not absolute. It allowed her to visit, but it would not hold her indefinitely. Her moments with Julian were borrowed, precious, and finite. She looked at him, his profile illuminated by the soft light, lost in his music, and her heart clenched with a painful dilemma. How could she tell him? How could she explain that their perfect, timeless bubble was fragile and destined to burst? The thought of leaving him, of returning to a world where he was merely a historical figure, an echo from a broken melody, was unbearable. But the thought of him remaining trapped, alone in this garden for another century, was equally agonizing. Their love, though transcendent, was bound by the cruel dictates of time. The unspoken question hung heavy in the air. What future could they possibly have, when one lived in the past and the other in the present, connected only by a magical garden and a fragile, broken music box? The decision weighed on Elara's heart like a leaden cloak. She knew she had to try and fix the music box, not just for Julian's freedom, but for the very possibility of their future. The magic of the garden, Julian explained, was bound to its melody. If the tune could be made whole, perhaps the bridge between their times could be solidified, allowing him to step out, or perhaps for them to find a new, shared existence. It was a desperate hope, a gamble against the very fabric of time. With a heavy heart, Elara returned to her own apartment, leaving Julian in the garden with a promise to return. The journey back was jarring. The sounds of modern London, the rush of traffic, the endless chatter of people, felt alien and overwhelming after the timeless quiet of the garden. She pulled out the music box, its worn wood feeling heavier in her hands than ever before. Her past attempts to fix it had been purely mechanical, a historian's detached puzzle. This time, it was different. Each delicate gear, each tiny spring, felt connected to Julian, to their love, to the impossible future they yearned for. She worked tirelessly, fueled by coffee and a desperate hope, poring over schematics of antique mechanisms, her fingers aching but relentless. Days blurred into nights. Finally, in the pre-dawn hours of a cold morning, she felt a subtle click. A tiny gear, previously misaligned, slid perfectly into place. She held her breath, her heart pounding. With trembling hands, she slowly, carefully, opened the lid, and then, it happened. The music box began to play. Not the broken, fragmented tune, but the full, rich, complete melody that Julian had played in the garden. Beautiful, and haunting, filled with a profound yearning and an even profounder hope. The notes flowed seamlessly, a symphony of forgotten love finally made whole. As the last note faded, a gentle, golden light, unlike any natural light, filled her room, emanating from the music box. The air shimmered, and for a fleeting moment, she felt the familiar pull of the garden, but this time, it was an invitation, not a warning. Without hesitation, Elara grabbed the music box and rushed back to the antique shop. The old woman smiled knowingly as Elara burst through the door, not asking any questions. Elara pushed through the hidden door, back into the magical garden. Julian was there, standing by the gazebo, his face etched with a familiar sorrow. But as he saw her, and as the music box, still in her hand, began to play its perfect, complete melody once more, a look of disbelieving wonder spread across his features. The golden light from the music box intensified, enveloping them both. The garden seemed to come alive, its roses glowing, the air thrumming with an energy that felt both ancient and new. Julian took a hesitant step towards her, then another. Elara moved towards him, tears streaming down her face, a radiant smile blooming through them. As their hands met, a spark, gentle yet powerful, passed between them. The world around them blurred, the boundaries of time dissolving. They were no longer confined to the garden, no longer separated by a century. The future remained unknown, fraught with challenges for a love that had defied all logic. But as Elara looked into Julian's timeless eyes, she knew one thing with absolute certainty: the melody of their love, once forgotten and broken, was now complete. And together, they would face whatever came next, two souls woven together by the echoes of a melody finally made whole.